Auburn Drive was the kind of suburban street where nothing ever happened. Neatly trimmed hedges, porch lights glowing warmly, and families wrapped in routines. But that peace was shattered one cold October evening when the screams pierced the night. Emma Caldwell, 27, was found dead in her living room. Her body was posed, not merely left. Something deliberate, ritualistic. The killer hadn't just murdered her, he'd made a statement. Neighbors recalled nothing. No break-in sounds. No car screeching away. Just silence, then sirens. Detective Rachel Monroe, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for sensing the motives behind the madness, took lead on the case. What struck her immediately was the cleanliness of the scene. No signs of forced entry. No struggle. Almost like Emma had known her killer. The forensic team found fibers on Emma's sweater that didn't match anything in her home. A piece of red thread, foreign to the scene. And there were 2 wine glasses on the counter. One still half full. Who had Emma shared her last drink with? Rachel made it a point to interview everyone on the block. Most were cooperative, shocked. But one man stood out. Vincent Graves. He lived 2 houses down. Mid-30s. Soft-spoken. Said he barely knew Emma. But Rachel noticed something odd. Vincent hadn't blinked once during their conversation. Back at the precinct, lab results on the red thread came in. It was wool. From a very specific vintage jacket, once mass-produced in the late 80s, now rare. The same kind Vincent was wearing during the neighborhood interviews. Detective Monroe began to dig into Vincent's background. No prior arrests. A steady job at a hardware store. Quiet. Invisible, almost. But hidden in his apartment lease application from 3 years ago was something disturbing. His previous address? 4 blocks away from another unsolved murder. Same victim profile. Same stage pose. Was this a coincidence? Or had a serial killer embedded himself in the very community he hunted? Rachel ordered surveillance on Vincent. But what happened next would shake the entire department. A week after Emma's funeral, detectives returned to the crime scene to re-examine evidence. That's when Officer Lyle noticed something. A man standing across the street, leaning against a lamppost, watching them. He was there for hours. Watching. Not taking notes. Just staring. Lyle approached him, but the man casually walked away. Security footage confirmed it was Vincent. Rachel reviewed footage from earlier visits. Vincent had been near the crime scene 3 other times. Each time the team returned, he was nearby. Blending in. Always watching. This wasn't random. This was obsession. But why Emma? Rachel revisited Emma's online activity. Her blog. Her Instagram. And there, buried in the comments, was a name at Vis Graves. An account that had liked every photo Emma had posted. Even the ones with only 2 likes. 3 weeks after Emma's murder, another body was found. Carla Jenkins, 25, in a neighborhood 10 miles away. Same pattern. Same eerie calm. Body posed. No forced entry. A wine glass. The local police called in Rachel immediately. Rachel's gut clenched. This wasn't a new killer. This was the same man. Same obsession. And this time, he was mocking them. But Carla was different. She didn't live alone. Her roommate, Ashley, had been out of town but recalled something chilling. Carla had mentioned a man she'd seen outside her gym, twice in 1 week. She'd said, "He gives me the creeps, but he never says a word. Just watches." The pattern was forming. Rachel charted it out. Single women. Late 20s. Lives alone. Wine. Posed body. No forced entry. Killer returns to scene. But there was one more thing. They had all recently changed something publicly. Emma had posted about starting therapy. Carla had posted her new address. This was a man who hunted via breadcrumbs. Online. In the shadows. Rachel brought in a profiler. They built a chilling picture. Obsessive-compulsive traits. Fantasies of control. Fixation with revisiting his art. He didn't just need to kill. He needed to see the aftermath. And he wasn't done. A search warrant was finally secured for Vincent's house. Most of it was spotless. Unremarkable. But behind a loose panel in the bedroom, detectives found a hidden compartment. Inside were items labeled with dates and initials. Jewelry. Lipstick. A diary. Emma's name was there. And Carla's. And 2 more. Victims never connected. Never attributed to foul play. One had been deemed an accidental overdose. The other, suicide. But the trophies said otherwise. Rachel realized Vincent had killed more. And he'd been perfecting his technique. Learning. Growing bolder. Rachel confronted Vincent. He denied everything. Calmly. Polite. But when she mentioned the hidden compartment, a flicker crossed his face. "That's not mine," he said. "You labeled them. They were gifts." Rachel placed Emma's necklace on the table. "She was my friend. Did she know that?" Silence. Then a whisper. "She should have." That was enough. Not a legal confession, but the emotional crack they needed. Rachel knew he would break. But it would take time. Rachel kept tabs on Vincent even after he made bail. And sure enough, the third visit happened. A neighbor called it in. Vincent had returned to Emma's house. Just stood on the sidewalk, watching, for almost an hour. He left flowers, not on the porch, but inside the gate, past the locked latch, which showed no signs of being broken. He still had a key. Rachel arrested him again. This time, she pressed hard, described each victim, their lives, their dreams. And finally, he said it, "I gave them attention. No one else did." The profiler dug into Vincent's past. A childhood marked by abandonment, a mother who disappeared, a father who drank, foster homes, silence. He'd learned to watch, to study people, but he'd never learned how to connect. His obsessions were replacements for intimacy, controlled, predictable. Emma had responded to one of his comments once. That had been enough. In his mind, they had a relationship. Carla, she had smiled at him at the grocery store. He believed they belonged to him. The trial began. National attention mounted. Headlines dubbed him the Watcher. Vincent pleaded not guilty, but the evidence was overwhelming. The trophies, the surveillance, the chilling footage of him watching, waiting. Rachel testified. So did Ashley, Carla's roommate, and others who had noticed Vincent but never spoken up. The jury took only 5 hours to deliberate. Guilty, on all counts. But even as he was led away, Vincent turned, looked at Rachel, smiled, as if the story wasn't over. Vincent's incarceration should have ended the nightmare. But the obsession lived on, behind bars. Letters began to surface. Sent to Rachel. Cryptic. Written in verse. Full of metaphors. Always ending with one line. "I see more now than I ever did." He was following the case. Watching the coverage. Absorbing every detail from the confines of his cell. Rachel had seen killers obsessed with the past. But this was a man who believed he was still part of the present. She wondered, was he grooming someone else? 2 months into Vincent's incarceration, a body turned up. Same staging, same pattern. But Vincent was behind bars. The victim was Melanie Ortiz, 29. The scene felt familiar, too familiar. Was it a coincidence? Or something more chilling? Rachel feared the worst. Vincent had inspired someone. A copycat. Or perhaps a disciple. A package arrived at the precinct. No return address. Inside, a USB drive. Rachel opened it. Surveillance footage. Grainy. Shot from the shadows. Of her. Outside her apartment. Walking her dog. Sitting on her balcony. And one file titled, Next. Rachel's hands trembled. This wasn't just about past crimes. Someone was coming for her. Rachel visited Vincent. He was calm. Serene. Too calm. "Do you know anything about Melanie Ortiz?" "No," he said, smiling. "But art inspires art." He wouldn't admit it. But Rachel sensed it. He was proud. Rachel had tech forensics dig into the metadata on the USB. They found traces of a proxy network, but one username popped up repeatedly, Graveseeker92, an homage to Vincent. The IP led to a college student's apartment, but he was clean. No history. But in his closet, a corkboard, covered with newspaper clippings of Vincent's case, and photos of Rachel. Rachel was assigned a protective detail. Still, she couldn't sleep. She began carrying a second weapon, changed her routines. The Watcher had become the watched. And Vincent, he basked in the chaos. A guard came forward. Vincent had been recorded having late-night conversations with a visitor, a woman. Her identity was unknown. Face obscured. She had visited 5 times in 3 weeks. When the audio was enhanced, they heard Vincent whisper, "You know what to do next." Facial recognition finally worked. The woman's name was Naomi Briggs, a paralegal. No criminal record. But her apartment, covered in Vincent's sketches. Letters. She called him her muse. And she was gone. Vanished. Rachel launched a statewide manhunt for Naomi. But Naomi was always one step ahead. She left behind one clue, a journal entry left in a motel room. He opened my eyes. I see them now. The empty ones. The lonely ones. She was planning another kill. Rachel found herself running out of time. The pattern was returning. The spacing. The silence. She knew Naomi would strike again. And the only person who might know where was the man behind bars. Detective Claire Moreno wasn't expecting a break in the case, not this soon. But then, a local librarian came forward. She remembered seeing Simon, not once, but twice, lurking in the non-fiction section on criminal psychology. He had asked about a book titled Inside the Mind of a Killer. That detail alone wouldn't hold up in court, but it was enough for Claire to dig deeper. Back at the precinct, she ordered another search of the area surrounding the crime scene. This time, officers canvassed a wider radius. They found something disturbing, a second set of footprints, partially erased, leading into the woods behind the victim's home. DNA from a hair caught on a bramble matched Simon's. It was enough for an arrest warrant. But when they arrived at his apartment, Simon was gone. Simon had disappeared without a trace. His apartment was empty, stripped clean as if he'd never lived there. The walls, once adorned with abstract art, were bare. Notebooks, computer equipment, and even the mattress were gone. Detective Moreno stood in the middle of the room, haunted by the eerie silence. It was as if he'd predicted this moment and planned accordingly. A small post-it was stuck to the window. It read, "You were always 2 steps behind." A citywide manhunt was launched. Checkpoints were established. Airports were on alert. Simon's photo flashed across every news station. The media had a field day with the term The Observer, a nickname born from his pattern of watching investigators from the shadows. Anonymous tips poured in. Most were dead ends. One woman claimed she saw him hitchhiking near a rural highway. Another said he bought gas and duct tape in her small town. Both sightings led to nothing. Still, Claire refused to give up. Weeks passed. Then, an elderly woman in a nearby town reported a break-in. Nothing had been stolen, but in her bathroom mirror, someone had written with lipstick, "Miss Me." Fingerprint analysis confirmed it. Simon. Moreno knew this wasn't just a criminal on the run. This was a narcissist who thrived on control and fear. He was playing with her, but the message revealed something else. He was nearby. Returning to the victim's home one last time, Claire and her team began a deeper forensic sweep. That's when a sharp-eyed officer noticed a subtle dip in the floor near the fireplace. Beneath the warped wooden plank, they found a locked box. Inside, Polaroids. Dozens of them. Images of the crime scene. Of Simon watching from different angles. And even pictures of Claire. He had been closer than anyone realized. As Claire flipped through the photos, one stood out, a young woman sitting at a cafe. The image was dated 3 days prior. On the back, she reminds me of Elise. The team identified her as Maya Lin, a local art student. Moreno rushed to her apartment. She was gone. Her roommate said Maya had mentioned a new friend named Eric. Eric was one of Simon's known aliases. Security footage from the cafe showed Maya laughing with Simon. He looked completely different. New hairstyle, clean-shaven, different clothes. But the eyes were the same. Claire's heart raced as she scanned footage from Maya's neighborhood. One camera caught a car, a silver sedan matching the one Simon was believed to have stolen, heading toward the mountains. A statewide alert went out. An abandoned cabin in the woods outside Pinehurst was raided after a hunter reported strange activity. The door was locked from the outside. Inside, Maya was found, alive but terrified. She said Simon spoke of recreating the moment, of fixing the mistake he made with Elise. He had left just an hour earlier, heading north. Part 29, the final confrontation. A roadblock near the state border finally cornered Simon's vehicle. He stepped out, hands up, smiling. "Took you long enough," he said. Claire confronted him. "Why?" He whispered, "Because I could. Because you kept looking." Simon was arrested, this time with overwhelming evidence. But the damage he left behind could never be undone. The courtroom was packed. Simon represented himself. He treated the trial like theater, charming, evasive, cryptic. But the evidence was damning. DNA, photos, victim testimony. The jury took just 4 hours. Guilty. Life without parole. Yet as he was escorted out, Simon smiled one last time at Claire and mouthed, "See you soon." Investigators revisiting archived CCTV footage from the local businesses near the crime scene stumbled on something haunting. In several clips, captured across 2 different days. The same hooded figure lingered near the alleyway, always watching, always silent. The most chilling part: one clip was recorded 2 days after Cole's official arrest. But Cole was in custody. So who was this? Was there another player, someone who shared the killer's obsession? The timeline was no longer linear. This discovery unraveled the theory that Cole acted alone. The footage showed calculated presence, not coincidence. Someone else had returned. Maybe even before Cole did the second time. It wasn't just a murderer returning to the scene. It was a pattern, a ritual, a compulsion. An elderly woman who lived across the street had spoken to police early in the investigation, but was never followed up on. Now, with the new surveillance footage, detectives visited her again. Mrs. Lenora Kane, 76, had seen something she didn't realize mattered. He was always there. First night, he had a hood. Second time, no hood, but same eyes. Cold, like glass. She said he watched as investigators moved around the alley, just standing there in the dark. He had this grin. Not big, just enough to make you feel like something was wrong. When shown Cole's mugshot, she hesitated. That's not the same man. What had seemed like a twisted solo act was now a potential duo of darkness. One in custody, one still free. But why had the second man, if there was one, never struck again? Or had he? Detectives reopened cold cases from the surrounding counties. Specifically, murders with the same eerie hallmark: post-crime sightings, staged crime scenes, and killer returns. 2 cases stood out, both unsolved. Both involved bodies discovered and then moved again days later. And in both, anonymous tipsters had called police, giving them clues that led nowhere. Cole's journals, previously thought to be incoherent ramblings, now took on a new light. One entry stood out: "He returns when I cannot. I watch from within. We share the memory, but only he gets the encore." Detectives theorized that Cole may have been manipulated or overshadowed by a dominant partner, possibly someone who groomed him into the murders. Psychiatrists confirmed Cole exhibited signs of dissociative identity disorder or intense codependency. He wasn't just returning to the scene. He was reliving someone else's script. When investigators revisited the crime alley a final time, they found fresh graffiti sprayed in red. "He watches too." It was newly painted. The alley had been cordoned off for months. Only police and forensics had access. And Cole was still in solitary confinement. Fingerprint analysis revealed a partial print. It didn't match Cole, but it matched a partial found at an unsolved murder site 2 counties away. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. Cole was the key, but he was never the only player. A week later, a call came in during a live press conference. The voice was masked, digitized, and calm. "You keep searching for the man in the hood. But what if the real killer was behind the lens?" The call lasted 23 seconds before disconnecting. Tracing it led to a burner phone, dropped at a city bus stop 2 hours before. The killer was mocking them. The press called him the Shadow Returner. Cole requested to speak with the lead detective alone. "Cameras off," he whispered. "He promised I'd be remembered. He promised she'd be the first, but not the last." He then handed the detective a drawing. It was the alley, but with 2 men drawn. One standing, one kneeling. Below it, he'd written, "Only one of us got the encore." The guilt in his eyes was unmistakable, but so was the fear. Cole was both the executioner and the puppet. The city held a vigil for the victims. Families came together, lit candles, and released paper lanterns into the night sky. A photographer captured every moment. But when the photos were reviewed, something chilling stood out. One image showed a hooded figure at the edge of the crowd, face partially visible. Same man from the alley footage. Same build. Same watch. And then, he was gone again. Detectives released the new images to the public. Tips poured in, most useless. But one call came from a mental institution. A patient, previously silent, had been drawing the alley, over and over. She claimed her brother used to speak of the perfect crime series, murders committed, then rewatched like movies. She said he had a new target. He likes attention. He needs an audience. Was the next return already in motion? To this day, the second man has never been caught. Cole remains in prison, mentally deteriorated and silent. Every year, on the anniversary, someone leaves a single rose in the alley. No cameras. No witnesses. Just silence. If you've made it this far, remember, obsession doesn't always end with capture. Sometimes, It only begins there. White right pointing backhand index if this story gripped you. Like, subscribe, and share with others who follow the shadows. Comment below, do you think Cole was the mastermind, or a pawn? And as always, stay safe. Stay aware. Move a camera. This is True Crime Hub, unmasking the darkness, one story at a time.